Today I was gonna say we're with a very special guest, but everybody's a special guest. But Melissa, welcome to my little YouTube channel. Um, you hold a special place in my heart because my channel exists in part because of you.
Really?
Yeah. So about a year ago, you interviewed me as a guest on your channel,
Mhm.
and that video did really well. I think it's like at the moment around 130,000 views or something. And people watched the video and then they would email me like follow-up questions and they wanted to know more. And I was responding to these emails one-on-one, but I'm like, you know what? I'm sure lots of people have these same questions. Maybe it'd just be easier and better if I just created my own little videos and just put it out there. So thank you for doing what you do. You have been interviewing people with all kinds of experiences, right? You want to give a quick rundown of what kinds of guests you've had?
Oh, sure. Thanks for that introduction. It was really nice to hear about the after effects of the interview that we did, which I really enjoyed talking to you. It was one of my favorite interviews, by the way.
Yay!
But yeah, I started out with near-death experiencers, and then I expanded into other types of spiritual experiences like pre-birth memories, past life and between life regression or memories, Kundalini awakenings, profound spiritual experiences, out of body exploration. And that's what I've been doing for the last several years. But now I'm actually starting to move more into more like a grounded, embodied approach of the
Yeah.
spiritual experiences, and also how can we embody that on the planet to face the
Yeah.
problems that we're facing in the world today.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I know you've recently on your channel been talking about this pivot you're making where, you're going to keep building on the foundation you have, keep serving that need in that community, but you're like, how can we embody it, live it practically, heal the planet, live better lives, take it from this abstract philosophy and make it real, which I love. I'm very excited, very supportive of everything you're doing there. You mentioned pre-birth memories as one of the things that your channel talks about. You have some yourself though too, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Would
And
you like to share that?
oh, I would love to. I always preface this by saying that there is nothing that I can say that's going to be accurate. Any way that I try to describe this will be so far from what it was, because what I experienced was completely outside of time and space and the five senses as we experience it here. So I can do my best to put it into language, and it's taken me 38 years plus being involved in the spiritual community to find the
Right.
language.
Yeah, the language is tough because I've
Mm-hmm.
been on this spiritual path my whole life too. And me and my spiritual friends, like we're doing this stuff, we're experiencing this stuff, and it's like there's not really a word for these things. And we do our best and we kind of get close or we kind of circle around it, but we almost need like a new dictionary of spiritual terms where we can use one word that has a very complicated answer for people to understand what we're talking about.
We need a new language to describe this, but we also, the feelings that you feel on the other side and the experiences that you have on the other side, we don't even have those feelings or experiences here. So it's like,
Right.
it's very difficult. But
And time flows very differently and like space works very differently.
mhm.
Like the past, present, and future are all a part of now, but they're also separate points. And the same thing with here and there and everywhere in between. Like it's all here, but also not. Like it's very difficult to wrap our brains around.
It is. It's mathematically, I've heard people try to describe it, and it's like you're what we experience here in the 3D world is existence. Something that exists has a beginning and an end. It's bound by time, has a
Right.
physical structure. But over there, you're trying to describe non-existence, things that don't exist because they don't have a beginning, middle, and end. They're not bound by time. They're not bound by space, but yet non-existence is so much fuller and more vibrant than existence. It's
Right.
the
This is the dream. This is the
yes.
demo version. Yeah, like
Yeah, but the best way that I can describe it now is to say that it was a giant universe-sized hurricane of infinite, all-consuming, fiery love. And it sounds so cliche to say that, but because it's like universe size, really, yeah, that's what it was. It was everything happening and being all at once. It was everything that is in the form of this giant hurricane of light unfolding in the eternal present moment, like flowering open in this beautiful infinite act of creation that
Yeah.
contained color and geometry and music and light and love and peace and bliss and question and answer, like all contained into this one magnificent thing. And
Right.
when you're in that, like, you're completely consumed by the love. You cannot think outside of it. It's like this
Yeah.
magnetic force field that captures your entire presence and awareness.
It's like the air. It's just always around you, and you can't like escape it. You're just
Mm-hmm.
constantly breathing it in and out. You're interacting with it in a constant existence. Yeah, constant flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you are it, but you are also, I don't want to say you're separate from it, but you're also an individual experiencing it. It's both at the same time.
And you've also had a mystical experience, right? Where you're kind of one with everything and
Mm-hmm.
source and that light and unconditional love. Um, this happened during a meditation. How did it happen for you?
It happened when I was around the age of 18 or 19. I was not meditating. Actually, I was raised as a Christian, so I wasn't allowed to meditate.
Right.
And
Right. Or yoga or meditation. There's certain words, psychic, you can't say because that's bad.
yeah.
I was the same way. Yeah. Very strict conservative religious upbringing.
Yeah, I remember that from our previous conversation. I had these pre-birth memories, so I remembered this divine bliss. For my entire childhood into my teenage years, I was trying to figure out how can I feel that way again. And since I was raised in the Christian faith, I was taught to pray. And so I would pray and beg God to let me experience divine bliss. Well, I didn't call it that. It was, can I please experience your presence?
Right.
And I was depressed. I had a lot of mental health things going on at the time. And I remember saying, I know that if I could experience that for one moment, all of my pain and troubles here would just melt away. And I prayed this for years and it didn't happen. And I do not know why it happened the night that it did. I like to joke and say that God just decided he was going to have to do something about it because I was not getting the point. I just kept insisting on having the spiritual experience instead of being grounded into my physical life. So I was laying there in my bed. I was fully awake. I was not sleeping or dreaming. And I was praying this prayer again. And in an instant, I was in another dimension. So I still perceived myself in the first part of this experience to be in my room on my bed, but suddenly I was in this dimension of love. I was floating in this ocean of all-consuming love, and the waves were enveloping me from my feet up to my head and going through me. And in that instance, all of my pain just disappeared. Like I did not even remember it anymore. And I recognized this was the being that I had been taught to call God in the Christian faith, but it was from my pre-birth memories. It was that ocean of love that I remembered.
Right.
And I said to it, where have you been my entire life? I have been looking for you my entire life, and now you are finally here. And I had no intention of going back to my life at that time. So there was two parts to my experience. In the first part, like I said, I still perceived myself to be in my body, in my room, and I was just soaking in this love. And it was infinite love and joy and peace. And it felt like being in my mother's womb and my father's arms, just so like I'm falling back into the heart of the universe and seeing how ridiculous it was that I thought I could ever be lost, or that anything was wrong with me, or that God was going to throw me into hell or anything like that. And so it's just this moment of recognition and remembrance and thinking that I'm just going to stay here forever. Then at some point, the second stage of my experience began, and my consciousness expanded out of my body, and I found myself somewhere in the universe. And this is where it gets really tricky, because multiple things were happening at the same time. So I'll have to start with one and then go back and explain another and then another. But all of these things were happening at the same time.
Right, because time works differently on that side. Yeah.
Exactly. The first thing that I remember is that it was when I expanded out of my body, it was like waking up into this realm of light. And this is the only time I remember like having a physical, like visual experience, but everything was brilliant. And my angels or guides were there, and they gave me a message. They said, "There is nothing for you to be afraid of. You haven't done anything wrong. There's nothing for you to feel guilty for. There's nothing for you to feel ashamed of. God is not waiting to throw you into hell when you die. This life is going exactly as it was planned. You are doing exactly what you were supposed to be doing.
Awesome.
You are doing a fantastic job, even though it's been extremely difficult for you. You have to go back and continue along this path and find your way out of the darkness. And we are here cheering you on every step of the way." And there's just this overwhelming feeling, like, because I had been raised in Christianity and guilt had been piled on me since I was old enough to understand language. And all of a sudden, just having that completely free, like, no, you haven't done anything wrong. You aren't guilty. This isn't happening to you because you're being punished. This is what you're supposed to be doing, and you're actually doing a great job. It's really hard to like absorb that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that. I want you to continue your story, but this is so important, because I've struggled with the same thing. I know millions of people, not exaggerating, are struggling with the same thing. And, I talk to my angels and guides all the time, and, I can be a bit of a defeated perfectionist. Like, I'm never good enough, and I always got to be better, and I can't make any mistakes, and I'm hard on myself. And they're always telling me, no one on the other side is expecting me to be perfect. No one on the other side is judging me. They know it's hard being human and that we're doing our best, and they just actually have unconditional love for us. They're here to support us, and that's that. We're the ones who are being harsh on ourselves, but that's not what they're doing on that side. So yeah, thank you for. I'm so glad you said that, because I think it's an important message a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah.
So continue your story, please. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And in response to what you said, I mean, I still don't feel that most of the time in this life. I don't. It's really hard to actually embrace that. But on the other side, it's like, it's just there. It's so clear. And it's just the relief that you feel is so intense.
And that's good too, because I think some people get the impression or the belief that, like, oh, once you reach a certain level of enlightenment or you have a certain spiritual experience, like, you're good and you've learned every lesson and you don't feel any more pain, and you're just in this bliss state all the time. I mean, share from your own experience, but in my experience, that's not the case. Like, you have those moments, but the other 99.9% of the time, like, we're still human. We got bills to pay. We're dealing with relationships and health issues and just getting older and everything that comes with that. It's very, very natural and easy to kind of get sucked into the 3D experience. And I think that's why we're here. If we just wanted to have that bliss and that spiritual experience all the time, we would have stayed on the other side. Do you have any 2 cents on that?
Yeah, I agree. This is the mistake that I was making as a young person. Having a spiritual experience will not make all of your problems in life go away, and you cannot have a spiritual experience and just stay there. I don't think that anybody has had a spiritual experience without doing the work to hold that higher state of consciousness and just, I mean, some people like Eckhart Tolle, they probably did the work in previous lifetimes to be able to access that state now. But the point of being in this lifetime, like you said, according to my understanding, is to experience being in the physical, to experience the contrast, and eventually and ultimately learn how to, I'm going to say, bring that divine bliss into the physical and learn and do the spiritual work to be able to hold a higher state of consciousness. But that's where language gets tricky, because in reality, that's already here. We just have to shift our perspective to be able to see it and access it in our state of consciousness. And in order to do that, you have to have more than a spiritual experience. It takes spiritual practice.
So would you say, because I agree, yes, like that light, that love is here. It's everywhere. There's nowhere you can go that it isn't. But maybe, and this is just a guess, I mean, feel free to agree or disagree or whatever. Maybe on an individual level, as individual souls, we are learning how to transmute energy, how to experience the lack of that love and light and learn how to bring it in and experience it, even though in reality it's there the whole time, but our individual experience of it might not be that. So maybe on a one-on-one individual level, we're learning how to be, how to become, how to play with, how to channel and transform that energy. I know my words are kind of failing here too, but are you kind of getting roughly what I'm saying?
Actually, I think you described that really well. And 100% I'm with you on that. I've even been told in my own personal life that one of the reasons why I'm here is to transmute energy, to alchemize energy, because that's the power that we have as humans. And I've interviewed people who have told me this, that they've seen in their experiences that human beings are unique in the fact that we have emotions and that we have the ability to create through our emotions and our vibration. And that's part of the value in having this human experience, that we can come into an experience of intense contrast. And we can take that and we can alchemize it into something beautiful through our energy, through our vibration, and how we choose to see and perceive the world. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about being, and this is not something that I would tell anybody, so specifically anybody who's seriously suffering, but something that I understand for myself is that it is about being able to experience the contrast as deep and dark as it gets here and still see divinity there, still see the light, still see and experience love in that darkness. And that's how we transform it. And that's how we create heaven here.
Yeah. Because I think if you can do that, you've mastered the skill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mastered the reason why we're here.
There's someone had actually recently emailed me a question that I'm going to do its own dedicated video on, but might be great for us to touch on now too. You know, you said for anyone who's like maybe seriously suffering, like they're really in pain and in the darkness. The person who would email me was talking about, okay, you know, if there's a piece of God in all of us, and what if someone's being cruel to you? What if they're being abusive or toxic and like the full definition of it? Sometimes people throw that word around casually, but I mean, like, they're really a bad relationship for you. It's not healthy. Their question was like, you know, am I supposed to just love them and accept them and see that it's God anyway? Or am I supposed, you know, what am I supposed to do in that situation? Put up boundaries, leave, you know, that kind of thing. What would your advice be in that kind of similar situation? Because I think a lot of people think spirituality means endless enduring, endless suffering, and putting up with toxic, abusive, bad behavior because, well, I have to unconditionally love them or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? What advice would you give to a person in that kind of situation?
I would say that allowing somebody to continue to mistreat you is not loving. Love encompasses everything. So if the love that you have does not also encompass yourself, then it's not love. It's attachment, or it's obligation, or it's duty. But
Right.
I just heard a quote the other day that I love. It said, "The love that encompasses yourself is infinite. It can keep giving because it doesn't have to take from you in order to give." And so sometimes the most loving thing that you can do, both for yourself and the other person, is to set a boundary. Whether or not that includes leaving the person or how harsh that boundary is going to be up to the individual situation.
Case by case. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't truly and fully love other people unless you also love yourself.
Well said. Yeah. Thank you. I want to circle back a little bit to your mystical experience, because, as you know, and other people who've seen my interviews, I talk about it, like, because I've had that oneness mystical experience too, and it was very similar. A lot of parallels. My entire life, I've been seeking oneness, closeness, intimacy with God, Source, the divine. Always praying, always asking, I want to experience God, seeking that for years. And it was not until my early 20s when I had my mystical encounter. And it was the same thing. It was like I woke up in the middle of the night. This was like I was lying in bed. I definitely was awake. I know this was not a dream. And I was connected to, aware of my body, but also expanding rapidly outside of it, exponentially, like accelerating to the size of the universe and feeling interconnected with everyone and everything and feeling that overwhelming bliss. Where our stories differ was it was so overwhelming for me. Like it was this like blissful explosion and I just couldn't contain it anymore. I couldn't handle it. And I had a withdrawal. I chose to pull back because it was just too much for me to contain in my own awareness. But it was more intense than any blissful pleasure or sense of connection that I've ever felt by a long stretch on Earth, And you mentioned like waves going through you, waves of energy. I felt that too. Like if my soul were like a sheet of paper or something, it was like a wave passing through it like that.
Mhm.
And as that was happening, it felt like it was cleansing off, breaking off like the crust, the baggage, the stuff that I had picked up in this earth life, a lot of wounds and pains and just limiting beliefs and just everything. It was like it was shaking it off of me, kind of feeling, maybe to help lighten me, unrestrict me to have that full experience. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing there. I want to help people on this channel who are seeking that connection, that intimacy with Source, God, love, light, that kind of stuff, whatever label they feel comfortable with, the universe, etc. It sounds like in both our cases, we were sincerely, with all our heart and soul, seeking this for a long time. And then one day out of the blue, unexpectedly, it hit us both.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is seeking that experience, do you have any guidance, advice, tips, tricks, whatever, to help them achieve that themselves?
That's an interesting question. I don't have any tips from personal experience because mine happens spontaneously. I know that
Same,
it's
yeah.
possible to have these experiences during meditation or while taking plant medicine, which, by the way, I'm not promoting, but if you do it safely and you feel comfortable with that kind of thing, I know you can have those types of experiences. What I would recommend to people is, rather than chasing an out-of-body spiritual experience, focus on transforming your consciousness so that you can hold that kind of experience while in the body, so that you don't have to try to go out of body to get that kind of experience. And that's very possible through simple meditation techniques, by learning to be in a meditative state as you're going throughout your day, by retraining your mind and your perception, what to focus on. You can start to drop in and access that bliss in everyday life.
Beautiful. Now, a lot of people I've heard say that they can't meditate, or it's too hard, or their mind is too noisy, or they don't have the time, or whatever. And you and I both know there's many styles of meditation, many ways to meditate. It's not all just, either a mantra or no thought or whatever. Like if someone doesn't have experience meditating, maybe doesn't have a whole lot of time, they struggle with it, what's a good way that you would recommend to start that could help them achieve what we're talking about here, like get them on the right path?
Yeah, I really love this question. And to be honest, David, I don't have a lot of time to meditate either. I have 3 kids. I have a job. We all have all of these things going on. And unless you're able to get up early in the morning before your kids get up, a lot of people really struggle to sit down and meditate. And that's not something that I've been able to do successfully either, just because there are so many interruptions in my life. But what I can do, and what anyone can do, is learn to meditate even in the middle of the chaos, even in the middle of the busyness. And there's so many ways that you can do this. There are several techniques that I can recommend. The first one is meditation is simply being present with what exists in the moment. So as you're going about your day, set a timer on your phone to help you remember in the beginning, or do whatever you need to do to help you remember to do it in the beginning. But create a habit of bringing yourself back into the moment and just asking yourself, what's happening right now? Can I be the observer right now? What do I see? What do I hear? What is here and now? And just breathe and bring yourself present. Another thing you can do is just become the lover of reality. So everything that you see or experience as you're going about your day, love it. Say, I love this thing. I love this person. I love this situation. And focus on love until it completely takes over your consciousness. Or you can use gratitude. Constantly look for things to be grateful for. Make a list at the end of the day, 10 things I'm grateful for today. And then as challenging situations come into your life, how can I be grateful for that? This can be challenging for people to do this one, but pick whatever resonates for you. But with gratitude, how can I reframe this situation so that I can see it in a way that makes me feel peace and joy? Because at the end of the day, all you have is your experience. You don't have control over what happens in life, but you have the way that you experience it is the only thing that you actually have. So how can I experience life in a way that makes me feel peace and joy and love? And what story can I tell myself about this situation to change the way that I feel about it and experience it? Another thing that you can do is self-inquiry meditation. You can bring yourself back to your state of awareness and just constantly ask yourself, who am I? Until you can identify yourself as the silent, present observer. And you'll find so much peace in that. So there's so many ways that you can go about this, but they all lead to the same goal, which is to experience bliss in everyday life. And it's just a retraining of how you experience yourself and how you experience the world and how you perceive your experiences.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's very practical, right? It's achievable. It's realistic. You don't have to go off into a monastery and meditate an hour every day. You can do this, while you're washing the dishes or driving to work or whatever. I mean, because I think really at its heart, meditation is about being in the present moment, not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, and being the director of our thoughts rather than at the mercy of them. So, choosing to look inside, who am I? Who do I want to be? What am I grateful for? can I love what is? That is learning how to direct your own thoughts so that you're in charge of them. So yeah, I love that. You have interviewed, I don't know, hundreds, thousands probably at this point, people on your channel.
Not quite thousands yet.
Okay, well, we're getting there soon. So you've been meeting with all these people with all kinds of backgrounds and spiritual experiences. You have your own spiritual experiences. What are like some of the big lessons, the big takeaways that I want to make this a two-part question. Has anything you've learned changed you and your life personally through this whole journey, either your own experiences and or what you've learned from people you've been interviewing? And whether or not someone's had a spiritual experience, like what's the big lessons we can learn from others that we don't need the experience, we don't need the spiritual experience for. We can learn from them and get the same benefits. Like what are the key lessons kind of thing for everybody, and what has had the biggest impact change on you?
Yeah, I love those questions. So let me start with the second one first. What are the key lessons from the interviews and the spiritual experiences? The big two that I got immediately when I started studying near-death experiences are God is love and everything is divine. And that sums up pretty much everything that everybody says, and it completely reframed my worldview. Other things that I've learned over the years would be, probably the biggest one is the most spiritual thing that you can do is just experience life. Just be present with the experience of life. Because as spiritual seekers, we want to do all of these things, chase a spiritual experience, have a transcendent spiritual experience, go to the Himalayas and meditate, study the holy book, find the right place of worship, whatever it may be. But what all of those things teach us, all the holy books, all the ascended masters, all of them are pointing back to the present moment. Be present with life. Enjoy the experience. Be in the experience. Accept what happens to you with unconditional love. Accept everything and everyone and yourself with unconditional love, and enjoy the ride and be in the present moment. And that is ironically the most spiritual thing that you can do. And that's probably also the biggest thing that's shifted for me, because I used to be a huge chaser of spiritual experiences. And I spent most of my life chasing God's presence or divine bliss, whatever language I was using at the time, and trying to figure out how to expand my consciousness and be the most spiritual and all of these things. And it really comes back to be present in the moment, and you'll find that peace and bliss and love that everybody is looking for is in you here and now. It's already here in the present moment, unfolding through you. You just have to change your perception so that you can see it. And how you do that is just by becoming present with it.
Okay, good. I was about to ask, okay, well, how do we do that? And you already, you beat me to it. Can you elaborate more on, you said like the big lesson was God is love and everything is divine.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Pretend I'm 5 years old and I don't understand any of this. Like, make it tangible. Like, what does that mean in practical, everyday reality?
Yes. It means that everything that exists is God. Everything.
Okay, but what about when someone's mean? What about cruelty to animals? What about pollution and destruction of the environment and the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs? Like all that's God? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Yes. So those are great questions, because children ask those questions at a very young age, especially in this generation.
Mm.
And what I've told my children, who have a very hard time accepting things like cruelty to animals and destruction of the environment and suffering of people in other countries, what I tell them is that everything that exists is divine love, condensed into physical form. We are here to have a very specific experience on earth, which is an experience of the opposite of God's nature. So we're here to experience contrast. And so here, people can forget who they really are. People can become ignorant of who they really are. And we are all here to learn and grow and make mistakes. That's part of the program here. Ultimately, everybody will awaken and remember their true nature, but right now, not everybody does. And a lot of people are very lost in the contrast, have forgotten who they are. They can't feel their divinity anymore. And so they act out of that and they hurt people. They do hurtful things. And we don't have to accept those things as morally okay, but we can understand that those people are reacting out of their own brokenness, out of their own hurt, and we can have understanding for that. We can let them be where they're at and choose to respond and love ourselves.
All right, we've got a little bit of time left, and one thing I love to do is explore possibilities where we take what we've learned, what we've experienced, and say, what from that can we assume is also possible? Like maybe you weren't directly told something, but we can extrapolate, make assumptions, good guesses, educated guesses. So you have some pre-birth memories, and you've certainly interviewed tons of people who've been to the other side and back, have pre-birth memories of their own, life between life, regression memories, all kinds of stuff. Do you personally believe that we pre-plan our lives before we get here?
I believe that many people do. I have heard from a lot of pre-birth experiencers who have said that they did not plan their life or did not remember planning their lives. This is what I'll say. It gets a little bit complicated with the metaphysics. Right. I believe, based on the variety of different people that I've talked to and just putting pieces of the puzzle together, there's something called the Earth experiment that you hear about a lot, where Earth wanted to see the planet, which is also a spirit, of course, a being, a living being, wanted to see what would it be like to ascend down into a lower density and then evolve out of that darkness and contrast and remember who I am. And according to what a lot of people have said, this is unique. Like, what is happening here on Earth isn't something that happens all the time. It's kind of a unique experiment. And so a bunch of souls, however many of us there were, who wanted to be part of this experiment, agreed to come and participate and help out. And some of us agreed to incarnate and have lives on the Earth and evolve spiritually with the Earth. And others agreed to stay in the cosmos and offer support and aid. But I believe that every person that is here agreed to be part of this experiment, knew what they were signing up for, was really excited to be a part of this. Part of this experiment is that we do drop into lower densities of consciousness. Earth's evolution started from the first density, which is the 4 elements, and then evolved into plant life and then basic animal life, and now human life, which is the human life and then some animals are the first to develop self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And then from that, we'll evolve into what's called 4th density consciousness, where we expand our sense of self to encompass all the other selves, and we evolve more into oneness consciousness. But this is like the whole process that we signed up for. And as part of that evolutionary process, we do forget, like we don't necessarily have self-awareness as a plant or as an animal, and we're evolving these things as we go along. So I think that at certain points in the evolutionary process, maybe people aren't necessarily planning every detail of their life. They might be getting reincarnated a little bit more quickly until they develop the self-awareness necessary to then say, okay, these take a little more charge of the process, if that makes sense. That's just some of my speculation. Obviously, we can't prove any of this.
Right. Yeah. This is all hypothesis at this point. Just experimental thoughts, maybe what ifs. But I love how you describe that. Just to share my own piece, my own perspective, because I've wondered this question a lot. I've talked to my angels and guides about it, and the understanding I have is it's not a one answer fits all kind of thing. That it's kind of a spectrum, and on one extreme, you have no real planning involved, but they do agree to it. It's kind of like, okay, you have an opportunity to have an incarnation, to have a physical life. This is what you're signing up for. These are the key points you'll be experiencing. There's always free will, and you might go left instead of right, but ultimately these are the highlights you're going to hit, the broad strokes that are going to happen one way or another. And then the soul, because free will seems to be like a fundamental law of the universe, the soul has to agree to it, or they don't incarnate. I think a lot of souls choose it because it is a powerful, rapid way for us to grow, to evolve as souls, but there is that freedom of choice. So on one extreme, it's like, here's what you're signing up for. Do you want it or not? And then on the other extreme, probably souls who've had many lifetimes, have been evolving for a while, they've reached higher levels of awareness like you're describing. They might be like, okay, you know what? I am choosing to come back and I want to accomplish very specific things now. And there might be a lot more detail put into that life plan. There might be a lot more planning involved. And even then, there's still some flexibility. There's variability, like which path are you going to end up taking exactly? Because, like the best laid plans, there's always going to be, once you're there living it, you're like, you know what? I changed my mind. I want to go this way instead. And that's okay. But I do think because we have that higher perspective, like we see that as a possibility. So you account for it in the plan. Like whatever choice you make at these certain junctions, we've got a plan that follows that. That's my understanding of things. In your intuitive knowledge or anything you've been directly told or have learned from others, is Earth the only place to have an incarnation, or are there other planets out there that are options?
I have heard from multiple sources that there are many planets out there. I don't think I've ever had one person disagree with that. Earth is one of the most difficult places to incarnate, and there's a lot of other, like, easier, like, water planets. And I mean, I've heard details of a lot of different places that are very interesting, and Earth does seem to be one of the most vibrant as far as life forms. We have so much life here, and ironically, that's something that I think we really take for granted. So much variety of life. But according to what many people have said, there's like infinite number of planets out there. There's multiple universes out there. And then within those universes, there's, of course, planets. And there's also planets at different densities as well. So, for instance, Earth is in the third density consciousness right now, where we have carbon-based physical life forms. But there's also planets, according to some people that I've spoken to, there's planets within our solar system, like Saturn specifically, that hosts life forms at a higher density consciousness, like sixth density consciousness. So if we humans were to travel out there, we wouldn't see anything, but that doesn't mean that there's not life there.
Right, like we can't see radio waves, but we know they're there.
Right.
We actually, as far as visible light goes, see a very tiny part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And that we know for sure with science. And if you just take that a step further and be like, maybe the universe itself, life itself can vibrate at frequencies that they might not even, like they coexist at the same spot in physical space, but they're not sharing physical matter per se. Again, my words are failing, but that's par for the course. So, and yeah, just to share my 2 cents on that same question, like I have always felt that this is my first incarnation on Earth. I've never met anyone where there was that familiarity, like, oh, I know you from another lifetime. I've never gone to a physical place and felt a special familiarity or affinity with it. Like, I think Earth is beautiful, but it all feels new to me. And I do feel, though, that I've existed for a long time, and this isn't the first time I've had a physical body. So that would imply to me I must have had an incarnation somewhere other than Earth,
Mhm.
if all the above is true, which implies there must be aliens, intelligent life somewhere out in the universe in some form or shape. And then when I kind of intuitively check in, when people ask, like, is there life out there or is Earth it? My memory, what little knowledge bleeds through from the other side, is the universe is teeming with life and Earth is not
Yeah.
the only option, and that there's trillions or quadrillions, if not more, of souls out there, and only a percentage of them are having incarnations.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've heard other people talk about, like, there's like almost like a waiting list. Like, people are excited to hop on and have an Earth life. We're about at time. I've got lots more we could talk about, but do you have any final thoughts you want to leave us with? Or
Yeah.
guidance, tips, anything?
I would love to say that at this time, well, at any time in history, but specifically right now with everything that we're experiencing, what I really would like to share with people is the importance of just a couple things. First, being loving. Because if we talk about things that we can learn from spiritual experiences, the number one thing that spiritual experiencers tell us over and over and over is that this life is all about love, and that we're here to spread love, and that the most powerful actions that we can take are the small, genuine acts of love and kindness, and that they are actually powerful enough to change the world. And so I really want to encourage people that even though there are so many big negative events happening in the news in different parts of the world, there are also far more people in the world who are spiritually awakening, who are loving, kind, caring, genuine people who just want to make the world a better place. And so believe in that and do your part, and just see every day how you can spread a little bit of love. A lot of spiritual experiencers who have seen visions of the future have told us that we are heading somewhere incredible, but how we get there is up to us. And so that's another part of this message, is that I think it's important for us to have a vision and to actually believe that it's possible for humanity to figure out how to live in peace and harmony on the earth. Not only is it possible, it is our responsibility, and we have to figure it out. And the more that we can consciously make those decisions to live in peace and harmony and to spread love, the easier our transition will be, because we're going to get there one way or another. But how we get there is up to us, and on how quickly we can expand our consciousness and how quickly we can believe that it's not only possible, but our responsibility, that we have to make this happen. It's up to us. We have to figure out how to do this, how to get along, how to share this planet peacefully, and we can do that. So let's have that vision, and let's make decisions towards that vision each and every day, just by each one of us doing our part.
I love that. And I want to add to that. When we say, do your part and put more love into the world, there's a billion ways to do that. The guidance I've always received is do that in a way that brings you love and joy. Something that's authentic to you. Like, it doesn't mean everyone start a YouTube channel or start a charity or donate all their money or whatever. We all have our own unique interests, our own unique gifts and skills, knowledge, relationships, physical abilities, etc. I recommend go where your inspiration is. whatever you want to do. I mean, it could be like I work in Hollywood, right? There are people who are actors because they're doing it for ego. They want to become rich and famous, they want all the attention. And then there are people who are actors because they know their performance can connect people, can provide catharsis and healing because it provides entertainment and joy, and it's a gift to their audience. And they have the talent for acting, they have the joy for acting, and that is how they love the world. Both are acting. One is an act of love and one is an act of ego. So for anybody, watching this, well, how do I love the world? Just look in your heart. What brings you love and joy? What inspires you? What are your interests, your talents, your skills? And how can you use it in a way that somehow serves, benefits, loves others? Because then you're doing both, right? Love is encompassing everything. You are loving yourself by doing that, and you're loving others by doing that.
I could not agree with that more. I was just thinking about this the other day. Do you mind if I share a little example? Yeah. My daughter loves theater. She's been acting since she was like 6 years old. And where we live now, there's a theater that allows kids to participate for free, and they put on a few plays a year. It's just very well done. The woman who runs it is, you can tell she is absolutely in love with theater and acting and teaching kids how to act. She does this at the end of her workday because she loves to do it. And it's so contagious. The way that she loves theater makes me love theater. It makes the world a better place. And so it doesn't have to be something spiritual. You don't have to be a spiritual teacher or a spiritual healer. What do you love? Right. What would you do in a heartbeat without getting paid for it? That's what the world needs.
And like you said, in reality, everything is divine. So any act that is kind, that is loving, that is joyful, is in itself spiritual.
Exactly. Everything is spiritual. Yes.
Yeah. Melissa, thank you so much for being. I wish we could do this for, all day long.
Me too.
For people who want to check out like what you're up to, like you have a website and a YouTube channel, where can they find that?
My website is lovecoveredlife.com. And my YouTube channel is Love Covered Life Podcast on YouTube, and then basically anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts.
Melissa, thank you so much, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart. It truly is a gift and a pleasure to know you, to connect with you. And like I said at the end of our interview on your channel, like you are doing great work. You are sharing love and light through what you're doing. You're following your passion, right? This is what inspires your heart. And just thank you for putting that in the world. You're doing awesome.
Thank you. And right back at you, David. And I just want to say that I love connecting with you because you're so authentic. You're so easy and fun to talk to. And that's why I wanted to do this interview. And so I really appreciate everything that you're doing. And I want to see your channel thrives. I'm really excited that you've started this.
Well, thank you so much. Awesome. I'm very excited to see where you're going next, and sincerely, please stay in touch. Consider yourself a friend of mine.
Thank you. I feel the same way.
Feel free to say any last words and we'll wrap there.
Okay. Thank you for watching. David, I love what you're doing. I'm excited about where you're heading as well. And just the most important thing is just be loving, be loved, spread love.
Well said. Thank you. And that's a wrap.